Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Battle Brothers Season 3. As today, we're right into it. For despite their dastardly distraction being so deftly dispatched, the rest of the Reavers rush in, eager to capitalize on what they assume to be their off-kilter foes. But as ever, woe to those who continue to underestimate the Raiders, a mistake you only really get to make once. And thus the Raiders readily pivot and rush right back into the fray. Diego blocking them on north as they move to flank. Rook directing the rest of the Raiders on the center line. And the blood begins to flow. Pumping with each rhythmic beat. The Reavers are given pause, turned to full-blown panic. That's Rex the first. Crescent axe cleaving a man practically in twain. A pair of churlish chosen begin working their way around on the flanks. Even as Val gives another cad the cold shoulder. Alois finishing the job with a sweep of shrapnel. Arrow taking down the next in line. Random pulls back, eyeing the six-side scoundrel on south. Though not too far back, he's got ample time. It'll take 2 full rounds for that guy to actually reach him. Plenty of time for Verlin to intervene. And over the initial shock of first contact, the Reavers start to push back, at least as best they're able. Hefty bronze and bog iron weapons hurled about with reckless abandon, but of course to no avail. Honestly, the only real threats here are those 2 chosen, and they're both kind of keeping their distance. And thus the Raiders continue to roust those rowdy Reavers. Actually, I take that back. Diego might be in a bit of a spot if one of those guys can actually land a hit on him. Thankfully, Diego's our second best tank. Rook runs a Reaver through, then falls back in line. Alois bides his time. Verlin holds. But not so Mal, who half scalps a hooligan. Okay, we can work with that. Giannis deprives a dastard of life and limb, though not necessarily in that order. And the fight becomes slightly more fraught on the flanks, as those chosen bear down on the back line. Seymore staying focused up front, though I am starting to think we might want to pull that Bardish off him. I like the Bardish, but I don't know. I mean, we just have so many unique weapons that we could probably get more use out of. Alois ends another attacker, whilst Verlin moves to intercept. preparing to receive the Chosen on south. Ooh, who continues to warily circle. The other finally rushing in, only to immediately take a javelin through the neck. The last few Reavers try to keep up the pressure, whilst Rax rotates to the rear, readily receiving those two real threats. Though, you know, honestly, he might not even get the chance. Much as with the rest of this brutish crew, the Chosen do seem to have bitten off a bit more than they can chew. Berlin assesses. Then lunges forward, shoving the other Chosen into a pit. The last of the Reavers rushes in. Even as Rax disarms the remaining Chosen. I mean, the first one's still there as well. He's just not really feeling it anymore. Oh, and a Raider finally gets his nose bloodied. One of the technically newer recruits, Giannis. Though, nothing he can't just walk off. Which certainly cannot be said for the Chosen. Collapsing into a deep depression. Or mayhaps a shallow grave. And with that, the fight is all but over. Mal dispatching the last on center. Seymore surging forth, snaring the drum. Diego dispatches a rousted Reaver. Val axes another. The final Reaver tries to run, but of course does not get far. Likewise with the now gutless drummer. As affirmed by Mal, that drum done been beat. And thus it ends. The final foe swiftly dispatched by... Ooh, not by Val. By Giannis. Yep, that's fitting. He's the only one who got his nose bloodied. And thus, the dirty work done, the Raiders set about the brutal job of beheading their foes. For they will need proof for their employer that they have done their job diligently. The Raiders taking a moment to ensure they have room for the choicest goods. But with cart fully laden, they finally push on. On to Tangval for the final leg of their patrol. We've got our kills capped out for this contract, so anything beyond this is purely optional. Also, legacy level on Rook, so we'll get that taken care of. Nothing too fancy. I mean, he's our company banner man. Makes it pretty straightforward. Yeah, we'll just keep stacking the usual suspects. Honestly, outside of, like, the Goblin Overseers, maybe, there's not really a lot of ranged threats to worry about. Not at this stage of the game. Trade path to Tangval secured. And back to Helvik. Actually, let's take the long way around, see if we can perhaps find ourselves a nice target of opportunity. Direwolves, I mean, we don't really need them. Ooh, that though. Oh, no. Actually, no, you know what? That is tempting, but also we're already tapped on cart space, so maybe we'll come back for that. New ambition. Oh, wow. Okay, well, that's not a great selection. We could forestall it, you know, just wait for a reroll, but... No, I suppose we'll go ahead and take the greenskin ambition. Might as well get that done. I think, unlike the Noble War, we'll try to get much more invested in this particular crisis. Narratively, we can assume that the anatomists are keen to test the knowledge they've gathered the past 170 days. After all, there was good reason that they hired the company in the first place to amass all this anatomical expertise. And what better way to put it to the test than by ending the greenskin threat once and for all? Though, of course, ultimately it is not their final goal. That perhaps involves rousting the rest of the legendary targets towards some nebulous end or another. I mean, of course, the ultimate implication being that it's likely for immortality, eternal life, something along those lines. That does seem to be the classic go-to for most medieval tales. Perhaps a bit cliche, but, you know, it's not really about where it all ends. It's more about the journey there. And ultimately, depending on whether or not the numbers stay sustainable, I am starting to cotton to the idea of potentially toughing it out to our third crisis now. Because if we are going to end things, I'd really prefer to end it on the undead invasion. Though, you know, there's always the chance that our third crisis could instead end up being the Holy War, which would also be interesting, because I don't think we've ever done that before. One sec, let me take care of the bookkeeping. And we're back. Load lightened, gear lightly shuffled, and, yeah, as aforementioned, I think we are going to go ahead and try some other weapons on Seymore, see if those get some more pronounced results. I'm not sure he really has the fatigue for that one, but we'll give it a shot, and if it doesn't work out, we've got no shortage of backups. You know, even if we don't go Cleaver, we've got some other potentially interesting things we might try. That's it. Let's go find something to kill. And, you know, while we do have these two barbarian camps, the one up north and the one out west near Damwald, I'm feeling a bit barbarianed out at the moment, so I'm thinking instead we might try to pull our first crisis contract. We are now tracking it, might as well make some progress. And given that, as we've seen, Oberberg is connected to the noble houses down south, let's push east instead. We'll head out towards Agerstead, see if we can get a contract there, and if not, we'll knock out the undead stronghold, perhaps. That's also on our to-do list. I feel like it's had a fair bit of time to marinate. Might actually give us a unique or two. Especially if there's a champion. One skull on tap. Let me just have a quick peek. Nothing notable. Yeah, price is currently elevated due to the raids. Alright, let's see what we've got. Count Radolf von Goswin looks you up and down. You fit enough to take on a greenskin? What about your men? You nod and pretend the hassle would be no more than retrieving a cat from a tree. Count Radolf smiles. Good, because I got a whole bunch of them being sighted to the west of Helvik. Go there and destroy them. Simple enough, right? Surely it interests a man of your confidence. Yeah, sure, why not? I'm not sure this actually counts as a crisis contract, but it is at least adjacent. Still mulling on that one last potential recruit. I'm not really sure what I'm looking for. Ideally, something we don't have as far as narrative events go. Honestly, Monk's probably our best bet, but I don't know. We'll see. And yeah, we might as well rouse this barbarian camp en route. Ooh, minor. That could be interesting. I think they've got a few special events. I don't know. It is pretty late in the game to pull a low-tier recruit like that, though. Let's get a peek at those jerts. Oh, plus the direwolf's still kicking around. Freshly dispatched patrol. Interesting. Interesting. Which does unfortunately gut the guards in the camp, but we can still potentially make this interesting. Let's see here. No, the direwolves wisely booked it. But you know what? I think this still makes for an interesting fight. Let's do it. 20 strong with an armored unhold in tow. We'll take it. I mean, we're still going to steamroll them, but at least we'll rack up a decent body count. These the guys we're here to kill? Seymore asked, hefting his cumbersome new cleaver in one hand. What, are you kidding? No, these are just primitive plunderers, Tommy retorted. Orcs are usually green. It's all the same to me. Skin's just the wrapping. It's what's inside that counts. And that's always red. Mind on the task at hand, gentlemen, Rook reminded them. And battle was once more joined. Giannis was first to dart forward, deftly defooting a foe. Sigmar whispering a silent apology as he dispatched a hirsute harrier. Diego dropping the limping lout as well, before facing off with a fearsome Fomorian. Random cleared the front line, freeing up the rest of the rank and file. Rook unhanding an approaching foe. And Verlin securing the flank. Sort of. I mean, they're definitely going to go around, but I'm not too worried about that. Honestly, biggest threat here is the Unhold on North. And I suppose the two-handed weapons. Those can still do some serious damage. Seymore swiftly bisected a foe. Huh. Bit top-heavy, but I could get used to this, he said, hefting his weapon once more. Tommy gave primitive pause. The approaching Reaver taking it full on the chest. Alois shredding the center line. Arrow angling his shots, dealing out a bloody wound, as Seymore simply sought a place to stand. Random covered Tommy. And on it went, the barbarians finally pushing back. Diego finding himself bodily hurled by the hirsute brute he faced. Crashing to the ground in a heap behind, though quickly regaining his feet, even as one opportunistic aggressor tried to keep him down. A hurled hatchet clipped Rook's cowl. Though, thankfully, given the size of the thing, it came nowhere near his head. Oh, that's Mark. Right, I think I called him Alois a second ago. Alois is the one in the kettled helm. Mark has the Plague Doctor mask. But yeah, that is part of why I don't really try to optimize all of our loadouts necessarily. I get asked that from time to time, why they're not all rocking salets and hyena pelts. Which would mechanically be better, but I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, I like to anthropomorphize our pawns. Both to give them more personality, but also for better visual fidelity. To be able to quickly differentiate them on the battlefield. Though, obviously there's still the occasional mix-up here and there. Giannis dispatched another ne'er-do-well on north. Rook on south. Verlin speared a thug's throat. Mal cut his suffering short, then waded ever deeper into the enemy line. Seymore swung wide. Another blackguard beheaded. The dastard beside disarmed. Seymore had slightly less luck with his second swing. But the distraction was enough for Rook to still run the Beastmaster through. Mark annihilating another errant enemy. Tommy threw down a thug. Arrow angled a shot. Random flailing felled another foe. Wish we could get that unhold helmet for one of our own guys. I mean, I know it's too big, but I really like that look. You know, there's a lot to be said for the elegant, clean lines of a well-made helm or cuirass, but I feel like the crude armor like that really adds character. A good look for certain recruits, depending on their background and various character traits. You know, much in the same way that we've essentially turned Rax into a Chaos Warrior. Or Bowman back there, festooned with the bones of fallen foes. Same with Random, really. You know, similar gear loadouts, but very different individual looks, which I think fit them both very well. Mal mauled a miscreant. The Beastmaster met an epic end. The Furbolg flying into a panic. Likewise, I really like the look we settled into with Alois. Not that he's present at the moment, but, you know, witch hunters are tricky because, like, I want them to look the part, but witch hunter gear is generally really low tier. So I'm glad we kind of settled into the masked kettle helm and sort of patchwork plate. Obviously not the optimal loadout for a nimble bro, but for a backline gunner, you know, it's serviceable and still gives him that distinctive visual flair. Tommy I'm less certain about. I really wish we could find like a nice, unique helm for him. Something to help him stand out. Maybe one of those lighter faced helms. The ones with the stylized metal faceplate. Yeah, Seymore. I like Seymour's look too. Definitely not what I had in mind when we first brought on a Hedge Knight, but I think it works. And Rook with that ridiculous hat. I do like that as well. Really glad we were able to salvage that thing. Giannis, obviously. Really love that gladiator look. Especially paired with the new gilded Khopesh. That thing really fits. Yeah, get out of here. Go on, get. Mark's a bit of an odd one. I do like the bone plate on the bone armor look. The Plague Doctor mask was mainly so he'd have an excuse to actually keep one in rotation, because I do like the way those look as well. Though I suppose, like, thematically, you could argue that it helps keep all the gun smoke out of his lungs and eyes. Obviously, its actual intended purpose to protect from poisonous gas isn't really a huge concern for a backline gunner. Cetrus looking pretty distinct. I like the color matching there. I do need to get a proper helmet for Mal. The problem being that he's really restricted by his fatigue. Bye. But hopefully we'll find something nice. And with the unhold undone and the final craven cur fleeing the field, the raiders stood victorious. Oh no, don't come back. Oh no. Alright, I mean, I guess I can't really fault you on loyalty. Well, that's a bummer. Doggone. I was really hoping it would just book it, but, you know, fair enough, I suppose. No uniques, but some decent trade fodder. With the Craven camp cleared, the raiders quickly collected their prizes and then went on their way. Ignoring the nearby pack of dire wolves that were hungrily eyeing the ruin left in their wake. Yeah, I mean, that would make for easy XP, but we don't really need the pelts. I'd rather stay focused. I think our end goal today is just to clear that orc camp. See whether or not it counts towards the current crisis. I don't think it does, but it could be that all greenskin related contracts just in general right now do. I'd have to double check the exact mechanics behind the greenskin invasion. Also, who knows, maybe we'll actually get a decent fight. Ooh. Kingsrook the Sergeant runs into your tent and says something is watching the camp. You come outside to see a silhouette in the distance, skulking behind brush and tree limbs. You know it's staring when it hisses, for what else would it be looking at to elicit such a charge? Its arms are long and slender and end in claws. You take a torch and sling it toward the beast. Its slick skin winks a vibrant orange, and it shrieks away from the cloud of embers and sparks as the torch lands and rolls past. The toothy maw is the last thing you see fading into the darkness. I think it's an elp, scapegrace. It's all by itself as far as we can tell. You ask if the anatomist has had visions. He shrugs. I suppose so, but also I have been drinking, so there's that. Have you? Gotta say, Rook, that doesn't really sound like you, but okay. Val, you're an expert on these sorts of things, right? What say you? Valin the Beast Slayer comes over. It ain't dangerous, it's confused. I'll take care of this. He's chewing on a dried biscuit and grunts and puts the biscuit in his pocket and sets off into the dark all by himself. A moment later, the Alp silhouette suddenly falls away and disappears. A few minutes later, the Slayer returns, shoving the last morsels of the biscuit into his mouth. You ask why the Alp didn't put up much of a fight. The Beast Slayer laughs. You said King's Rook fetched you from your tent, right? Right. And where's the sergeant now? The Beast Slayer points towards the campfire. The anatomist is there. Asleep. Deeply asleep. Valin gets himself another biscuit. Young Alps are still learning how to pry into your mind. They're not good at it and often call attention to themselves while trying. They're like thieves who can't pick a lock, so they knock on the door instead. A few of the men listen to this and are emboldened by the apparent flaws of these otherwise horrifying creatures. Oh, that's fun. I don't think I've ever seen that one before. Always nice to see something new. Would have been nice if we'd actually gotten an out part from that, but we'll certainly take it. Also, in retrospect, I guess it really didn't sound like Rook, because it wasn't. I like the, what do you call it, the emergent storytelling, when things fall into place like that. Alright, let's see what we got here. Oh, okay, well, I mean, I was kind of hoping for an actual fight, but I guess we'll take it. It is just a one skull. Yeah, alright. let's get the place cleared out real quick, then we'll have plenty of time to head back. All hopped up for an actual fight, the raiders felt somewhat let down as they finally breached the enemy camp, only to find themselves faced with a pack of rambunctious but relatively harmless orc young. No sign of the violently Viridian villains that the refugees the raiders had previously encountered had mentioned. But perhaps for good reason. Perhaps whilst the raiders were out here on the outskirts, they were having their way with the hapless folks of nearby towns instead. The less experienced louts left behind to hold down the fort, whilst the swarthier warriors went to claim the plunder and glory out on the front lines. Only time would tell. But for now, the raiders stayed focused. Throwing down with these unfortunate few. Arrow claimed first kill, skewering a scoundrel. And the rest of the raiders closed ranks. Oh, Seymore, stunned. But that barely bought these brutes reprieve. Mal murking a second. Verlin a third. Oh, and Wrestle stunned. Oh, but a third of the orc line abruptly broken. Yeah, this is almost sad. Centrist hammered 2 in a row. Random, briefly considering. Before slaughtering, I don't know, what is that, number 6? Promptly stunned, but doing his job, halting their advance. Yeah, he's an odd one because, as I've said before, I do think he's been long living on borrowed time, but we definitely helped prolong that by moving him to the back line. It's just that defense, man. His defense is pretty rough. The bone plates certainly help. But I imagine there will be a day someday where he finally gets overwhelmed and takes one too many hits. Giannis claims number 8. Or 7. I think 7. There were 13 when we started. I will be very sad, though, if and when Random finally dies. him, Seymore, Wrestle. It really does just seem like a matter of time, you know, especially if we push for another crisis. There's those bone plates. Seymore, number 10. Would be nice if we could upgrade Seymore to the gold gladiator gear. Not sure we have the, not sure he has the fatigue for that, though. I do think that padded pauldron is ultimately going to be the death of him. That's why we've kind of stopgapped with the leather skin and the bone guard, the 2 tonics we've imbued him with. But, you know, that's just buying time. Seymore slaughtered yet one more. 11 dead if you're keeping score. And the final 2 fell, fleeing straight into an early grave. With a quick level up for random, okay. I'd say that was worth our time. As aforementioned, he is in dire need of more defense, so obviously this won't make a huge difference, but it certainly won't hurt. The battle over, you search the orc camp. Amongst the ruins, you find what appears to be heavy armor and human weapons in a very unusable state. Sadly, you do not find those they perhaps once belonged to. Yes, very sad. Alright, let's go ahead and tag this stuff for repair. Get random taken care of, and then we'll head on back. Think that'll put us at a good place to call it. In fact, let's go ahead and do this now. Should be pretty straightforward. Yeah. Attack plus double defense. Could use more morale, but, you know, that's really more of a secondary concern. It is less important for a backliner. And tag this stuff for repair. Alright, as tempting as it might be to head further west, I think for now at least we'll stay on task, though ultimately, long term, I do think it might be in our interest to start probing further into the wildlands. We've still got a fairly large unexplored chunk. And I am starting to think, you know, speaking of emergent narrative, as we did earlier. Oh yeah, we're starting to see the marauding greenskins effects now. Yeah, given the current crisis, even though it has kind of veered us off my original course of going after the Kraken and or the Black Monolith, there is another legendary target I haven't really talked about much, which is the Goblin City. It's one I've never actually done before, but since it's kind of a pain, but, you know, with the current crisis, it might actually be worth our time to see if we can finally get it done. You show Count Radolf, ahead of an orc. He stares at it, then at you. Interesting. So should I take it that you've completed what I've asked of you? You nod. The man smiles and hands over a wooden chest with 802 crowns inside. I knew I could trust you, sellsword. I mean, I'm not sure why you wouldn't. Not at this point, anyway. All right, Raiders. Good, solid work today. Nothing all that out of the ordinary, aside from perhaps the Alp event. No other noble contracts on tap, though we do have some other potential jobs to pursue. We'll hit the pause button for now. I'll take care of the usual off-screen bookkeeping, and we will pick up here next time as we plan our next move. I actually have to double check to see if we've already uncovered the Goblin City. I know we've got the Kraken and the Monolith on the map, the Millhouse too, but I'm not sure about the Goblin City. I mean, hey, I'm not going to complain if we have to go back out in the Wildlands. Still plenty of sights to see. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Erie V23, Revenant, Alois, Bowman, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Lady Shayna, Mark Giemza, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.